When buying a house is not a good investment. Buying a house is a major financial decision that can give you peace of mind and a wonderful place to live. But it's not an investment. It's common for people to think of their house as an investment, but this is a common mistake on a few points. Based on a number of factors, a single-family home that you live in is not an investment. That's not necessarily saying you should avoid homeownership, but if you're leaning towards buying because you think you're making a smart investment decision, think twice. The idea that your primary residence can be an investment comes from the fact that, historically, real estate value rises. It's likely that we all know someone, a parent or grandparent perhaps, who bought their home decades ago for less than $100,000, and it's now worth many times that amount. Point number 1. A true investment requires more than the probability of an increase in value. Probably the biggest reason why a house is not an investment is because its primary purpose is providing shelter. This is more significant than it sounds at first. One of the most basic factors that makes an investment is your ability to control the timing of your ownership. That means that you can buy it and sell it at times and under circumstances that are likely to maximize your investment return. We can think of traditional investments such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds, even rental real estate as providing this ability. Since your house is your personal residence, you'll have little control over the purchase and sale from an investment perspective. You'll purchase the house when it's needed for shelter purposes and sell it only when it no longer serves that purpose, and it's time to move on. The lack of control over the timing of buying and selling a house had a major negative effect on houses as investments during the financial meltdown. Many people bought houses at the top of the market because that was the time they needed a home for their families, but still others were stuck having to sell after the market collapsed due to a negative change in their own personal financial situations. That forced them to buy high and sell low. That's not unusual when it comes to residences and largely disqualifies a house as an investment. Point number 2. A house can't be an investment if you never plan to sell it. While it is true that houses generally increase in value, there's only limited ability to tap into that increase. The most effective and efficient way is to sell the house after it has experienced a significant amount of price appreciation. However, selling a house is highly disruptive because it means you have to move. More significantly, when you do sell, you will most likely have to use the equity from the sale to purchase the next house. After all, you'll be moving from one residence to another. This means that in a real way, home equity is trapped equity. The only time that house does not fall into this category is when you plan to sell the house, either to trade it down to a less expensive house or to move to a rental situation. And that way, you'll sell the property and cash out on the equity. Point number 3. Thinking that your house as an investment can lead to equity stripping. There's another way that you can pull equity out of your house, but it is hardly a method that's risk-free. You can borrow the money out of your house based on the amount of equity you have. This can be done either through a home equity line of credit or through a straight-up cash-out refinance of your first mortgage. But when you do either, you're borrowing money against the house. That may put more cash in your pocket for purposes unrelated to the house, but it also creates a corresponding liability. That liability not only creates a reduction of future cash flow via the monthly payments, but it also puts your house at risk. A lot of people found that out the hard way during the financial meltdown. As house values either went flat or declined, homeowners realized that they had no equity in their homes. That left them unable to refinance to lower the monthly payments and unable to sell to move to a less expensive housing arrangement. The widespread use of home equity line credit and cash-out refinances made a lot of people feel richer in the short term, but it jeopardized their long-term financial security in the process. Thinking of their homes as perpetual investments, many engaged in serial refinances and left themselves underwater on their homes, owing more on the house than the house was worth. That's where thinking your house as an investment becomes a dangerous assumption. Point number 4. Typically, when you purchase an investment, it doesn't require an ongoing investment of cash. Not only do you have to make monthly mortgage payments, but you also have to pay real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, sometimes private mortgage insurance, and utilities. You also have to maintain the property, which means providing a regular series of repairs and maintenance as necessary. These expenses are called carrying costs, the costs of carrying the investment. Even more costly are the major repairs associated with home ownership. This can include replacing the roof, siding, windows and doors, carpets and flooring, and driveways. You may also engage in major remodeling that will require replacement of kitchens and bathrooms. Each of those expenses individually can cost thousands of dollars. Over the course of several years or decades, they can cost tens of thousands of dollars. True investments don't require that kind of ongoing outlay of cash. You can rationalize those expenses based on the fact that the house is providing you shelter. But that gets back to the original point. A house is shelter and not really an investment. Point number 5. Carrying costs can really work against you. Say, for example, Linda purchased a house for $200,000 and 10 years later she sold it for $300,000. Good investment? Only if you don't look too closely at the numbers. If the house cost her $1,000 per month for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, plus $300 a month for utilities, she'll have spent $15,600 per year or $156,000 for the decade that she lived in the house. If she spent another $3,000 per year on the routine repairs and maintenance, she'll spend another $30,000. And if she did more major repairs, like replacing the roof and flooring and remodeling the kitchen and bathrooms, Linda probably easily sunk another $50,000 in during the decade. That's a total of $236,000 over a 10-year period to get a $100,000 gain on the sale. While it's certainly nice to walk away from the house with $100,000 more than you paid for it, the math doesn't support the idea of the house as a winning investment. And we haven't even accounted for transaction expenses, like the 4 to 6% realtor commission, inflation, or for the fact that the value of the house may not rise that dramatically over the next 10 years. Point number 6. Your house won't generate cash flow. It would be bad enough if owning a house only required heavy carrying costs, but it gets even worse. A house you use as a primary residence generates no cash flow. This is a critical consideration. When you buy an investment, you usually expect to have some sort of cash flow on that asset while you're waiting for it to increase in value. Now, that's certainly true when it comes to stocks, mutual funds, and exchange-traded funds, but you expect to collect dividends while you're waiting to sell your investment position at a future date for a higher price. But even stable investments like bonds and certificates of deposit provide interest income while you own them. Since a house you live in doesn't produce monthly or yearly cash flow, the house would be taking money out of the homeowner's pocket each month, which now labels a house as a liability. Just remember, it's okay to buy a home that you'll live in for the right reasons, but it's not a good idea to label it as an investment when in reality, it's a liability.